Merhaba and welcome back to Rearing In It, the Formula One podcast. This week we're in Qatar, the penultimate race before the end of the World Championship, and what a race it was. Lots of championship ramifications, lots of drama, lots of strategy drama. Guys, did you enjoy it? Good race?
I think the race itself was quite dull. I think Qatar's not the easiest place to overtake, but for the implications for the championship battle kind of coming to an end next week, it was interesting to watch, but the actual racing, we had barely any overtaking.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it was really boring. I mean, the sprint race, just proving why sprint races on these kind of tracks is pointless, because the only thing that really can spice it up is strategy. So if you've got no strategy, sprint race is going to be boring. And then in the race, obviously, the only thing that was interesting was the kind of different strategies, and that kept the edge going the whole race of which one's going to pay off, and seeing if Max could keep the championship battle alive. So yeah, racing very poor, but overall,
yeah,
was exciting for Max fans.
Yeah, I think we'll get more into it in a minute, but I think it goes to show the importance of a good championship battle, that it can make even the most boring race interesting. So that, I think, has saved us at some points this year. Yeah. We'll take it from the top then. Speaking of things that weren't interesting, sprint quali, sprint race, obviously a sprint weekend this weekend. Piastri, first time he's beaten Norris in a quali session since probably Singapore. Really impressive weekend from him pace-wise. Form seems to have come out of nowhere. Do you think it's just that the track suited him? I think I've seen a lot of commentary that this kind of track suits him well, and maybe that's why he's done well. Or do you think he's got his head sorted a bit after a rough period?
Yeah, I think he has done well on this track in the past. We saw the same kind of slight dip in form last season. I think this year has been a lot more pronounced. I don't know whether it's he really needed a big weekend and he found something somewhere, but I think the track definitely suited him. It's a track that suits the McLaren as well, so that helps when the car's good under him. And yeah, maybe he's just got his head sorted a little bit, but could also be an anomaly. He needs to carry that form next week and hope for a miracle. But we'll see.
So Verstappen struggled a bit in sprint qualifying, down in P6, not quite his usual standard. But I think the big takeaway story was, at least from sprint qualifying, was Hamilton out in qualifying 1, SQ1, out qualified by Lance Stroll. It did look like the Ferrari was really struggling this weekend, which we'll get onto more later. But maybe a new low for Hamilton this year, Ferrari, you have to say.
When you'd think it couldn't get any lower, it did.
Yeah. I mean, he surely just can't wait for this season to end. But that's probably, to be fair, that's probably the 5th season in a row since, what's this? The 4th season in a row since 2021 that's been the mentality at this time of year, is he's just waiting for it to end. So it's just sad. It's just sad to see a legend of the sport. I think he's got it within him to turn it around. I really do. But it is sad to see a legend of the sport clearly really struggling mentality-wise at the minute. But moving on to the sprint race then. I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I watched the highlights and it was a 6-minute video because not much went on. The first lap, Verstappen got himself up 2 places. But still, he was behind Norris, which left the intrigue of if Norris beat him in the race, or neither of them finished in the points in the race, it would have been pretty much over for him there and then. And Ferrari ended up with no points. So a dismal weekend for Ferrari. No points in the sprint. Really struggled across the whole weekend. Do you think they've shut down and they're focusing on the 2026 car? Or do you think they're just having a really, really tough time of it at the minute, Ferrari?
I think they're having a tough time, but I think Hamilton's kind of frustration comes from the fact that he doesn't feel the team are listening to him. I don't know if that's always been a thing at Ferrari, and he's just so used to... Because we've seen it this year, Mercedes have got better as the season's gone on, and they obviously have been listening more to their driver feedback and the direction they want to go in. Whereas Ferrari, it looks like they've gone backwards, but I think it's actually just that the other teams have outdeveloped them, and I think Hamilton is one of the drivers that gives great feedback, and he knows exactly what needs to change in the car, and he's not having those changes are not being brought in, and I imagine that's where the frustration comes from him.
Yeah. Ferrari's just a different kind of beast, really, isn't it? It's an absolute juggernaut of a company, but at the same time, it's an Italian bureaucracy with probably 1,000 middle managers that things just don't happen the way that a small outfit like McLaren or the Mercedes F1 team itself, as it were, can operate. And the voice he has within those kind of organisations probably isn't as big as what it is at Ferrari. And whether he gets used to that or not, or whether he gets given that kind of platform and that voice, it will be interesting to see. Because like you say, I think especially from the end of his Mercedes run, he was so influential in the running of that team and the development of the car. It's probably been quite a change to not be part of that at all at Ferrari, at least from what we know. Behind closed doors, maybe it's different. But a better year for him next year, we're hoping. Right, moving on to regular F1 then, our more regularly scheduled events with qualifying. Piastri kept up that good form. Pipped Norris once again. Norris aborted. I think he had to abort his second run, which cost him dearly, and meant that he ended up in P2 behind Piastri in P1. Do you think he had a chance of getting that, putting down? Do you think he had a chance of putting a lap together that was going to challenge Piastri for pole? Or do you think he just had the pace this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've seen that Piastri was fastest all weekend, and I think in the race as well had more pace, by maybe more of a margin than in qualifying. But throughout sprint qualifying, they were very, very close. I think if he'd put the right lap together, he could have done it. I think Piastri deserved it. I think he, maybe had it in the bag, but bit of a shame on that last lap. But poor planning, I think, with the timing of it.
Definitely. Max, though, in P3, definitely been more competitive. So I think the floor upgrades that Red Bull bought have really helped him in this period of the season. And he looks like quite a healthy P3 today, or P3 on the Saturday. Didn't really seem to be too challenged by the Mercedes. They came in 4th and 5th, so still really strong from then. They seem to be finishing the season really strong, Mercedes, compared to Ferrari, who have just fell off a cliff, it looks like. P10 for Leclerc and P18 for Hamilton, so another Q1 exit for Hamilton. Leclerc had a big spin in Q3 as well, because that car just looked absolutely uncontrollable, didn't it? So a season to forget for Ferrari this year, and I'm sure they're just waiting for Abu Dhabi to come and go at this point, because I don't think they're not really in touching distance now of chasing down Red Bull either so it looks like they're going to finish 4th this year. I've seen a few Ferrari fans online trying to cope a little bit and saying that they're deliberately tanking for more wind tunnel time, but I don't know how much I believe that one.
I'd not put money on that being the case, but it is an added bonus of a terrible season.
Exactly. It's the silver lining, isn't it? It's like at the very least, you get some more wind tunnel time. Moving on to the main event then, the race itself. Once again, for God knows how many times this season, we should go back and count how many times this season Lando's lost positions off the start, because it must be the majority. It has to be the majority of races. He lost out to Max off the start once again. Oscar flew up the road, really. Got himself into a healthy lead pretty quickly, but Lando, by I think the second corner, reaction time pretty much the same as Verstappen, but the second phase,
just under, but not a lot.
But the second phase, he smoked him essentially, and Max got himself up into P2. That proved to be absolutely crucial in this race, because the main event essentially of this entire race, what the entire thing pinned on, was the safety car on lap 7. So Hulkenberg crashes out, has an incident with Ocon. Would you say just a racing incident? I didn't see too much drama within that one. What do you think, Oz?
They both seemed to have left quite a lot of room. So to me, I just saw it as a racing incident. But when Ocon's involved, you never really know.
Yeah. It looked like a racing incident, but yeah, Ellie, you're right. Who knows? I think, the safety car there. I mean, couldn't have
Yeah,
been
it
timed
was-
better, really, could it?
because they
Lap
had to
7,
pit.
I
They could
mean,
only run the tires for
perfect.
25 laps. I remember looking and I was like, oh, this is like the. Because I was thinking beforehand, oh, if a safety car comes out early, they won't pit. And then when I saw the lap number, I thought, oh, this is the perfect time for them to run a 2-stop. So yeah, it was freakishly good timing from Hulkenberg.
Yeah. So just to give some context for anyone who doesn't know, Pirelli and therefore F1 mandated this race due to the curbs, I think, and due to the vibrations put through the tyre. They weren't happy with people running tyres for more than 25 laps, which essentially forced every team into a 2-stop race, because in a 57-lap race, the maximum stint being 25 laps, that only gets you to 50 with one pit stop after 25. So everyone was tied into a 2-stop race, no matter what, essentially. Safety car on lap 7 left 50 laps with 2 perfect 25-lap windows to go. And then, as everyone was saying on the commentary, they'll all come in. Piastri goes past. Verstappen goes in. Norris goes past.
No, because
what's happening here? Every single driver
what they didn't
piles into the
consider,
pits.
what every other team consider. 9 teams out of 10, they didn't consider the bigger picture. They didn't think about flexibility. Because what if a safety car came? Oh, I mean, the safety car that's happening right now. No, forget about that. What if another safety car came?
I think
the flexibility.
Had there
and
been
that
a
is key.
later safety car and they got a cheap pit stop and they put on maybe some softs and they were absolutely rapid, I still don't think they'd have necessarily come away with a better result, because overtaking
everyone
was
would have
so
done it.
difficult.
Yeah, and at that point, everyone would have done it.
They still would have lost track position.
Either they would have lost track position, or everyone would have done it, so they wouldn't have got the benefit anyway. Because at that point, they were in the pack, so they could do the alternative to other people. But then, on a track like that, where it's not too big, and the issue was really as well was that Piastri in the lead caught the safety car really quickly, meaning that they didn't have a chance. So lap 7 was the only chance, and they had time to come in. It would have been tight. They had time, but I'm
not sure they would have been able to double stack. I think Norris, if Piastri come in, he would have got out fine. But I think if Norris come in, he would have been bogged down the same way that happened to George Russell.
Yeah,
I don't think he would have been able to get out. So I think
maybe that is. So then,
in the interest of fairness, which is I think what we'll come on to in a second, they decided not to pit either of them. But I just want to say this quickly. In 2021, when Hamilton was the only driver on the grid in Hungary because he had the intermediate tyres on and everyone else went for the wet.
Everyone has stopped.
Everyone else took off the inters
slicks
and put on the slicks, and Hamilton was on the grid by himself, and it was a really surreal moment, and it was the complete wrong decision, and he knew immediately when he looked around in his mirrors and there was no one else there, he knew immediately it was the wrong decision. This felt like that. Because when
it really did.
The safety car was waiting at the end of the pit straight for Piastri, so he would have gone down, been told to stay out, and then got to the end of the pit straight, and he was immediately picked up by the safety car because it was waiting for him. Then, had it, the safety car have not picked him up until the next lap, it wouldn't have seemed as big of a thing. But as soon as he saw that safety car, it felt like a huge mistake from McLaren, and it just felt like the Hamilton 2021.
It really did.
And I don't know, I didn't hear Piastri's radio, but I assume immediately after he was maybe questioning the decision, but Norris was definitely questioning it and being like, we should pit, we should have pitted.
Yeah.
Why
and I think his main thing was wanting to do
and for Piastri,
opposite of Verstappen, let alone the right decision for everybody, but doing the thing that Verstappen wasn't doing to him felt wrong, and that's a fair point from his perspective, I think.
Yeah. Because Piastri's at first, when you're in first, obviously you've got that nice clean air, you've got track position, but you lose that ability to react. Well, Norris being in P3, he had that ability to react, and he could, I know the interest of fairness, but I don't know. Realistically, he's their best chance for the drivers. They should have pitted Norris. It was a mistake,
definitely a mistake. And after the race, they haven't really come out
and I think
said, "Oh yeah, that
said
was."
they were wrong.
They've been really weird about it. And I think it's just because they've had in the past where they've split strategies and then it's benefited the driver behind. And had Norris have seen, Verstappen's going in, I'm going in, and they've put split strategies, Norris would have benefited from that. And then you have the awkward thing of, would Norris give that back? No, because it would have meant he would have won the championship. Of course he wouldn't have given that back.
Well, I think... we'll come on to this a lot more, but I think there's still a very good chance that McLaren walk away with the World Drivers' Championship.
Oh, yeah.
But even if they do, I don't think they can see... I think they will do it because of the pace of their car. It's definitely not going to be because of tactics. Their tactics this year have been absolutely terrible in some races, and they've cost themselves so many points.
Not great.
Cost themselves relationship with the drivers that they have, mostly Piastri. And I think if they win, it'll be despite their tactics, not because of, for sure.
Yes.
And I think the fact it's this close with Verstappen now, this week was just emblematic of a season of things like this where they've just cost themselves silly points, and points that don't, in a constructors it doesn't matter when you're the two fastest car, but in the drivers it makes a huge difference, being on the right tyre at the right time, doing the right tactics, and they've just had a terrible season in that regard.
I think it's worth...
Surely something they'll work on in the off-season.
I think it is worth noting, though, had Norris not have had the engine or fuel line issue in was it Zandvoort, he would be the champion now, and had in Vegas, if he hadn't been disqualified, he would be the champion now. So I know that obviously tactically, yes, they have made errors, but I think there's also been other issues.
It shouldn't be tight.
No, it shouldn't be tight.
Have mattered.
The fact
That's
that Max
the point,
has wormed his way in is unforgivable. The fact that they've allowed that to happen. But I think exactly. Like contextually, if Norris ends up not winning next week, it could potentially be because of 0.1 millimeters, because that's his skid blocks. One was 0.07 mils and one was 0.12 mils. When we talk about like the smallest margins to lose a championship, I think that might be the winner.
But it's hard. It's hard over a season because you could say a million things of, that was the one thing, and then you have to do for the other driver. It's like, well, Max, if he didn't have a DNF, he didn't have, Spain, if he didn't have these, moments where he's lost points either, through no fault of his own, or you could then go into each of the drivers and where was their fault,
if he had a teammate.
So I think, I don't know, it's fun sometimes to pick and choose, but ultimately over the season, all these things kind of
don't look like Felipe Massa out here with a pick and
that's where the things that you can control, like the strategy, makes a bigger impact, I feel, and has a bigger weight to
McLaren always talk about papaya rules and letting them race, but we've said this time and time again, this season they have hardly raced each other.
They've barely raced. They've barely raced each other.
And it seems really strange that we have these two. Obviously it's now become 3 title rivals, but for most of the season it was just 2, and the fact that they've barely raced one another is kind of crazy. So I think that the teams have maybe...
I think Verstappen has raced the two of them. I think that Verstappen has raced the two of them quite a bit at times. He's raced Norris quite a few times, but if anything, it feels like they raced more in 2024 than they did this year.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It felt like in the second half of 24,
like on-track actual battles,
there was more on-track action, especially between Norris and Verstappen, than it feels like we've seen this year when there's a 12-point gap going into Abu Dhabi. I might be wrong. Maybe the stats don't prove that right, but just the feel you've got as a fan watching doesn't feel like there's been as much on-track action of overtakes this year as it feels like there was last year in a championship battle that on paper was a lot more one-sided.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, if you go back to the last closed championship, 21, I mean, it feels like pretty much every race we had on-track action between the two drivers.
But I think that's the thing, it's the hatred. I think the two lead drivers hated each other, and I've been saying this, Orsa's been saying this all year, teammates used to hate each other. And these days, these two, both McLaren drivers, they're not chummy this year. Let's face it, they're not like best friends. No, but they're too polite.
But I think it also is because these things they can be within the organization. Maybe like Alonso Hamilton you're talking about earlier. But then also on track, right? And that builds on track, and then that was very much the kind of Verstappen Hamilton. That kind of rivalry was built on track in these battles where they overstep, they crash. Well, we've had sort of one incident, two maybe. Norris sort of going into the back of Piastri and crashing. It's the one that comes to mind. Can't remember what race that was. But like we've barely had these kind of full incidents that build that rivalry on track and create the tension. Because it's all team managed, they don't blame each other. They just look at the team and
perfect thing for that. And I've mentioned it a few times is it was the Monza incident where, Piastri pits before Norris. Norris then pits after, has a slower stop. Piastri's ahead. Instead of there being a 1.5 second gap for them to fight it out with a few laps to go, McLaren tell Piastri to let Norris pass because it was their fault for a slow pit stop. There's moments like that you just take the drama away from the fan, and you understand McLaren don't get paid based on how much drama maybe they do to an extent, but they don't get paid for creating drama. They get paid based on championship position, so you understand it from that perspective. But as a fan, you just want truly free, true freedom, true papaya rules, the real papaya rules, where in those situations they are able to race and potentially crash. That's part of the sport after all. And I think McLaren's fear in some moments has actually cost them than if they were a bit more laid back and maybe a bit more risk taking, like we know the Red Bull team is year on year. Okay, right. Moving past that then, someone who kind of flew under the radar this race. I was saying just before we start recording, I kind of looked up and didn't even realise this had happened. But Carlos Sainz, another podium, P3 for Williams. Helped out a bit by, the blunder with the McLarens, which means that he got ahead of Norris at least. And I think he got quite lucky in terms of the pit stops with, a lot of people being held up by, really, because such a busy pit lane, a lot of people were held up on getting out of the pits. But another incredible drive from Sainz, another podium this year. More podiums than a certain replacement in his Ferrari seat. And another huge result for Williams that basically guarantees them P5 in the championship, which I really think they've earned. And I think at this point they're every F1 fan's second team at least.
Yeah, and it makes Carlos Sainz, I think, the first Williams driver to get more than one podium in a season. It's over, I think it might be 2014.
I was going to say not ever.
No. Obviously not. They're one of the most successful teams in Formula One history. No, in a season, I think for over a decade. I think, as I said, it might have been like 2014 the last time. Maybe it was like Felipe Massa, Valtteri Bottas, someone like that kind of thing. I don't know who it was, but
the Bottas days when they had the Mercedes engine, which was insanely powerful, and Williams were really strong then. I remember that.
Yeah. So it's been a long time that Williams have been at the back of the pack, but it's really great. I know Harry predicted them to come in fifth, and we all kind of mocked him at the start of the year. We all said we'd love to see it, but we kind of mocked him for thinking that. But they've been kind of head and shoulders at times above the rest of the midfield. There have been other races where they've really struggled and their car hasn't necessarily been consistent across all 23 races that we've had so far. But when they're good, they're really, really good.
Yeah. And I think they've got drivers. I think that in terms of driver skill, they've got two of the best drivers on the grid, in my opinion. Their driver lineup is the strongest of any of the midfield teams as a pair. Is the strongest of any of the midfield teams by a mile, and even rivals, I think, some of the top teams. On balance, when you consider the quality of the teammates Verstappen's had. Obviously, you'd rather Verstappen, but then both of the Williams drivers are better than anyone Max has had as a teammate in years. Get to like Leclerc level. There's arguments about.
I was going to say that
they're both. I think they're both capable of top teams essentially.
That Albon guy. In the Williams, I would say far better than that teammate Max had. The Albon guy in the Red Bull. I mean, he was shocking. but the Albon guy in the Williams.
Well, you joke, but I think like both they've both come from top teams. So obviously Albon did have a stint at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Sainz had a slightly more successful period in the Ferrari, of course. So they both come from successful teams and they know what it takes to win. Well, maybe not Albon as much, but you get my point, is that they both come from really high operating,
but so is James Vowles,
organizations.
and I think that's the big change.
Exactly.
There is James Vowles. He knows how to win and he knows how to manage
mentality.
and lead, but James Vowles just comes across as such a lovely guy.
Big time.
And it seems like Williams is just like, it's got this really positive upwards trajectory, and it's something that I've really loved watching this year. I think every Formula One fan's loved watching this year, and it just feels quite like wholesome in a sport that's quite not wholesome.
The fan base in F1 can be.
Yeah.
It's something that maybe a topic we'll talk about at length in another podcast or something. But I do think the fan base in F1, especially from what I see on social media, it can be very toxic actually. From a sport that really doesn't warrant it.
Yeah, really horrible,
it can be really toxic out there. So it is nice to have a good news story this year and there's some universally loved characters. It is really nice because there's so much hate flying around with a lot of the drivers. You just see the stuff that's put about Lando Norris. I feel bad for him sometimes. I know we take the mix sometimes, but I like to think we're fair. Some people I think take it a bit far. At the end of the day, they're all out there entertaining us, aren't they? So it's nice to have a good news story and some universally loved characters is always a good thing. Another universally loved character then, everyone's eternal rookie, Fernando Alonso. Paul decided he loved Monaco this year so much he wanted to do it again, and basically parked up on track, slowing. I think it was an 11-car DRS train behind him at one point. Which just goes to show how hard it is to overtake at Qatar.
I mean, this saved
it saved Norris's race
a lot more, because I mean he could have been behind way more cars. Alonso creating that pit stop gap for him was massive because he just didn't have the pace. I mean, on that middle stint, he was supposed to be pulling away from Max, and Max was, I think it was on the hards, pulled up behind him. And this could have gone so much worse. He then pitting and was only behind Antonelli and Carlos Sainz. Really, I mean, hats off to Alonso because if he'd lost even more points here to Max, we could be looking at more interesting race than we're going to get next week.
Yeah, so speaking of points then, really interesting thing at the end. Antonelli on the penultimate lap, small little mistake, went wide, let Norris through. So Norris was kind of closing down, never really in danger of reaching Sainz in time, and probably would have been stuck behind Antonelli. But a little mistake from Antonelli let Norris sneak through. 2 more points, leaving it as a 12-point gap instead of a 10-point gap. That could be huge because that's the difference between him finishing P3 not being enough to now him finishing P3 behind his 2 top rivals still being enough points for him to win, which I think could have a massive influence. Yeah. So, moving on. Driver of the day. Ellie, give us your driver of the day for Qatar.
I am going Carlos Sainz. I think he drove, pretty well. Great result. Love to watch it.
Yep, I'll agree with that, Carlos Sainz. With an honourable mention to Antonelli, who did a great job keeping Norris behind for a lot of laps, and was really fighting that car at the end. And he got a lot of. We were talking about social media hate. He got a lot of very nasty hate for no reason. And he's doing great. He's had a really good end to the season as well, which will set him up nicely for next year.
Just because I feel bad for him, I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri. Because he did put a foot wrong and was probably the fastest car on track all weekend, and without some dodgy strategy it would have been an amazing performance from him to come back and win after so many weeks of struggling. So I'll give it to him, just on keeping his head high as well at the end. Robbed of a win, but the performance was really good. Okay, with that then, it's time for everyone's favourite section of the show. It's time for Grid News.
Hello and welcome to Grid News. top billing this week, Adrian Newey announced his new team principal for Aston Martin starting from 2026. Bit of a rogue one for me. I wasn't quite expecting that. There were rumours of Christian Horner. Lance Stroll come out and said it definitely won't be Horner. And then it was announced as Newey, which isn't a position I ever really saw him in as team principal. So we'll see how that goes. But he's also, I think he's going to be team principal and the technical director. So...
Yeah, he's keeping technical.
Yeah, so I don't know.
He's not really done many interviews about it to explain it. So.
No, he's done one interview where it was more of just a confirmation thing. So it'll be interesting to see how he juggles that. Aston Martin has kind of had a revolving door at the top. So we'll see. I think Aston Martin could, with the way they're funded, could be such a good team, but they're just not managed particularly well. They're so we'll see what happens. I'm not sure what to expect from that. We'll see. So news in today is Hadjar has unfortunately been promoted to Red Bull for the start of the 2026 season. And Arvid Lindblad, the Formula 2 driver, is going to partner Lawson in the Racing Bulls. I think everyone kind of expected this. Hadjar said in an interview at the weekend in Qatar that he knew he was going to have a seat for next year, which I think everybody kind of assumed to be the Red Bull seat, and Tsunoda gave answers that suggested he wasn't going to have a seat in Formula 1 next year. So Lawson, despite the rough start he had to the season, he is keeping his seat and he'll be partnering with a rookie. So it'll be interesting to see, because obviously he's kind of been a rookie this year, but kind of had a bit of experience, and he got demoted, and then he was beaten. He was like, Hadjar's kind of had the better of the results. So it'll be interesting to see how long Lawson sticks around in the cutthroat world of the Red Bull.
He'll be on the hot seat because Yuki will be waiting in the wings, you would assume. So he'll be on the hot seat. So we'll see how he deals with that pressure, because I think he's enjoyed having the pressure taken off him in the Racing Bulls after a tough start in the Red Bull. So it'll be interesting to see next year where his head's at.
Yeah, so that will make it with Lindblad. 5 British drivers, and also we kind of half count Alex Albon, because although he competes for Thailand, he is British born and raised. So 5 British drivers. I know that there's an extra team from next year, so that's out of 22 as opposed to out of 20 for this year, but it's still it shows British motorsports in a good place. The karting, the junior formulas, they're all coming through, so it's great to see, because we invented a lot of sports and then become really bad at them. So it's nice that we kind of
nice to have one that we're good at.
Yeah, the one that we're actually still doing well at. We touched on earlier the abuse that Antonelli has been suffering in the last few days. So it was come from a comment that GP Lambiase made to Max over the radio. He said, "It appears as though Antonelli's just let Norris through." I think he said that having not seen it, but it was a dangerous comment to make. And we're talking about Antonelli, he's a teenager, and he's been receiving quite a lot of quite serious abuse, including death threats online. And Red Bull have issued a statement, but they've not apologized for it. It's just a statement saying we were wrong, but there's not really an apology in it.
GP did apologize.
GP
did apologize separately straight away. But the Red Bull statement could have been better, because it was Marco, I think, that put out not so much for GP statement, because I think he sort of covered that himself, but Marco obviously stirs the pot like he normally does, and but they should apologise for that, and then they should have fired him while they were at it, but they didn't. So.
His opinion holds no weight anywhere. I don't think he's a ridiculous man to be around F1, but
should be in a retirement home instead of. I mean, he's good at his job, as in scouting for talent, but that's about it, and it doesn't outweigh the hate spews.
Anyway, that is it for Grid News.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Okay, so to wrap up then, final race next week, Abu Dhabi. 3, like we mentioned earlier, 3 drivers still in contention. 12-point gap between Lando at the top and Max in second. I think Oscar's in a few more points behind that, right?
Yeah.
Either way, many permutations of who can end up winning. Lando's goal is P3 and he's won no matter what. Max will probably need to win. Oscar as well definitely needs a win and probably some crashes. But it's still all to play for, and that's something that we've not been able to say for a while, especially with a three-way battle for the final race. So, Harry, give me your preview, give me your predictions for Abu Dhabi, and I want you to predict the top three, and also who's going to win the championship.
I think it'll be Norris winning the championship, and I think he's going to win the race as well. I think Abu Dhabi it does favour their cars. I think we saw this weekend Max has that pace in him, but overall the paces with the McLarens, yes, they could screw up for a third weekend in a row, but even if they do, and we get a repeat of Max P1, Lando P4, if Oscar's anywhere, if he's P2 or P3, I do think he gets the order to just drop back. Even if he's P2, drop back to P4, let Norris take that third
That's why those
position.
2 points from Antonelli were absolutely,
so unfortunately,
I think gifted Norris. Was so crucial.
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't see, unless we get a truly disastrous race from Norris where he's right back, which I don't see happening. People talking about the pressure, I don't see that happening. Or we get we get some DNFs, we get some stuff which you don't really want to see as a championship decider, and someone's not even finished the race. Not. So I think Norris will pull it off, and I do think he will win the race. I think it will be a triumphant victory. I hope Max wins it, and I hope it's exciting either way. But Piastri, I don't really see a path to it.
Too much has to go right for Piastri, I think. I mean, crazy things have happened.
Yeah, but it could happen. It could happen. Yeah.
I don't know why. I just have a feeling McLaren are going to mess it up. I think realistically, yes, it will probably be Norris, and I think that they would give Oscar the call, as you said, Harry. I think that would come in because it'd be too embarrassing not to. I think
it'd be so embarrassing not to.
They're saying that they wouldn't, but I think push comes to shove, one lap from the end. It's a call that kind of has to go out.
Yeah.
But especially if there's especially if it's Max is 20 seconds down the road, there's no way Oscar could catch him. There's no way Oscar could win the championship himself. I think that call would have to come in. So I think realistically, probably Lando. But there's just a part of me that just thinks the way Lando kind of sounded so defeated on the radio this weekend kind of surprised me. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. I just hope it's fair and clean and there's no
I just hope it's clean,
controversial issues. Yuki's not crashing into
that was my one thought is Yuki, when they come to lap Yuki, which they definitely will.
Well, I think
but then the thing is,
I think we're in the clear, because if they hadn't have announced their driver lineup, I'd say okay, they've told Yuki if he makes it happen for Max, he gets the seat next year. But
maybe now they've dropped him, he'll crash into Max.
It's not going to happen.
Or maybe that's because Agent Hadjar's on the case. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if something like that happens, it would very much tarnish the championship. I know, obviously, let's say Max won it in that manner, he would still be a 5-time world champion, but it would kind of tarnish it. It would be a bit... It's not what you want to see in sport, really.
And similarly, for Norris, obviously Max's first championship win through no fault of his own, is tarred
in the eyes of everybody.
And if Norris, obviously a British driver, first championship, does deserve it. It has a similar, not similar, but it's anything that could be controversial.
As a fan, I favour McLaren over Red Bull. I'm not gonna lie about that, but I think as long as it's fair and clean, I don't mind the result. Yeah.
Because they all deserve it.
Yeah, they all deserve it for many reasons. Like Lando has been so consistent. Like it's the fact that like we all think Lando's going to win is because he might not have won every single race, and the three of them are tied on race wins. But he has been so consistent all year, and he has the most second places of any of them by a mile. He's been so consistent, and that kind of consistency does probably earn you a championship across the course of a year. Max has been outstanding. Oscar's been outstanding in moments, poor in other moments. Max has maximised everything he can with the car he's had. So all of them deserve it for different reasons, like you say. I also believe, I think too much has to go right for Max and Oscar. And Lando, like you say, Lando basically needs to be within P4 with a few laps to go, assuming Oscar's one of the ones ahead of him, and it's kind of in the bag, because I can't imagine, even if I was in Oscar's shoes and he might not be happy about it, so your teammate wins it and another team doesn't win it, you probably do get out of the way. So Lando's goal is to be in P4 by a couple laps from the end, which, like I say, he's been so consistent this year, I can't see that not happening. So I do think he's going to walk away with it, to be honest. Who knows? In a week's time, we'll find out. That's the beauty of F1. Okay, amazing. Okay, moving on then. Wrapping up. Final thoughts. Ellie, why don't you hit me with your final thoughts from this week?
My final thought is this. We're all talking about the Drivers' Championship, and yeah, that's exciting. That's the glitz. That's the glamour. But teams care more about the constructors, because that's how they get paid. So
they paid
McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, Williams, first to fifth, are pretty much set. There could be, I guess,
pretty much nailed.
Some changes, but it would take quite a lot. So those 5 are pretty much nailed on. But then going below that, okay, yeah, Alpine are ridiculously bad. Let's discount them. But between Haas and Sauber, only 5 points. Between Aston Martin and Haas, only 7 points. And sometimes Haas turn up to races. So that
They can do, yeah. They're capable of a 7-pointer.
Yeah. Aston Martin to Racing Bulls is 12 points, so that might be a bit more unrealistic, because Aston Martin don't seem to be an informed team at the moment, whereas the Racing Bulls definitely seem to be a bit better at this stage of the season, so maybe that one's a bit more wrapped up. But I think between 7th, 8th, and 9th, we could see some movement there, and okay, Aston Martin can fill up to the budget cap because they're owned by a billionaire, but for Haas and then presumably Sauber, the Audi team next year will just get whatever Sauber had this year, because they're changing, they're not a new team, they're buying them outright. So
yeah, same company.
Yeah. I guess like Audi have a bit more money to spend, but for a small team like Haas, if they could move up a place and pip the Aston Martin with 7, by outscoring them by 7 points, difficult, but potentially could happen.
Be another feel-good story as well, right?
That would be a huge... Yeah, that would be huge
mega
for them.
Funded,
so
yeah.
I'll be
Saudi
keeping...
money funded team.
Yeah, I'll be keeping my eyes a little bit on that as well. Obviously, main focus is on the drivers, but there's some still things to be decided over in the constructors. So that's my final thought.
Lovely. Harry, final thoughts for this week?
Final thoughts. Oh gosh. I just can't even think about this week anymore. My mind's already on next week. I'm holding up all 5 fingers right now. I want to believe. It's my final thought. Belief.
He's already got Max Verstappen tattooed on his ribcage. He's already ready. Yeah. My final thought is that I'm very excited for next week. I know it's a bit of a cop out, but it's true. This week, in many ways, it served to just set up next week. The racing wasn't incredible. The strategy was what won it for Max, what lost it for McLaren. But the setting up for next week couldn't have been better. So for that, this race definitely served its purpose. My final thought is next week's going to be a quality race and a quality end, a fitting end to a season that, like we say, there's 3 people going in who could, and probably do, all 3 of them could definitely deserve to win the championship. Cool, amazing. So with that, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for listening to an episode of Rear Winging It, the Formula One podcast. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to us, follow us on Spotify, find us on Instagram, find us on YouTube, and get your popcorn ready for what's going to be an amazing season finale next week. And we'll be with you, breaking it down for you shortly after. So goodbye from me and goodbye from all of us. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Max is going to win, Ellie. He's going to win. He's going to win. You're going to cry. I'm going to cry big tears.